Today we're going to watch the rematch fight between Baba TC Ataturk at over 1 billion power and Leopard, who's over 400 million power and is the king of 1960. But unlike in the last duel, today they're both shedding their alliance titles to make it an even battlefield. They can bring their armaments, they can bring their equipment, and may the best governor win. But before we dive into this footage and break down what's going on, allow me to tell you about the sponsor of today's video. Today I want to give you an early access look at the game King Arthur Legends Rise, a squad-based role-playing game made by Kabam that will be available on PC and mobile, which means you can play this thing wherever you go. In this game, you build up a powerful set of heroes and armor and weapons, and what do you do with all that? You explore a rich world with tons of different side quests and objectives, along with a main storyline that has you fighting sweet freaking monsters. And if this is the kind of game that you think you're interested in, then definitely check out the link in the description to pre-register for the game. And also, you can register to get access to the beta. You should definitely check out the beta for this game, and the footage in this video is before the beta's even begun. This is closed beta footage, so you are getting truly an early look at the game King Arthur Legends Rise. A big thank you in advance to the makers of King Arthur Legends Rise for sponsoring today's video. Okay, here we go. The fight's about to begin. Boom. Even break at the start here, and it looks like Baba's Nebu Esong's been targeted, and the Nevsky with William has been targeted for Leopard. From here, they start to switch targets, and now where are we going? It looks like Baba's Zhuge Liang with Nebu is getting targeted, as is Leopard's, but the health is definitely dropping a little bit faster on Leopard's march there. Now they switch targets, and what happens next? Looks like the Skippies are up, and Baba's got a Budokatami. I think that's a smart target to remove here, but Baba seems to be a step ahead. His target has now been eliminated. The Budokatami is still chilling. Looks like he's shifted now onto Leopard using Nebu and Esong. Another target has fallen. That was Baba's Nebu march that dropped. And now we're getting down to not that many marches left here. Now Baba's targeting Leopard's Boudica Artemisia. And Baba's Skippy Prime looks like it's getting worked down. Skippy Prime with Tariq Ibn Ziyad dropping pretty quickly here. You may recall, by the way, yesterday I covered what combos were being used. We'll do a revisit with the reports in just a second here. Here we've got the Joan with Mehmed now getting focused, and Baba's got 4 marches left to the 2 marches of Leopard. This looks like it's almost just about wrapped up here. This was a crazy fight. I was able to spectate this myself, thanks to Baba sending me the sort of time and location of this rematch. But I do want to give a big shout out also to Leopard. Both players sent me reports, and Leopard also sent me video of this as well. That video was captured by Seawill, and here we are at the tail end of the fight, by the way. All that's left is the Guan Skippy. Baba drops an emoji, and that is a GG on the battle. Wow. All right, let's get a peek at all of the battle reports here, and we can review all the combos that were being used. They were very similar for both players, but there were a couple tweaks, especially in Baba's roster, since the last time that he did this. You may recall that last time he brought a Trajan. This time, he did not. And I think for a 7v7, that is a fine choice to not bring Trajan. Trajan is still meta in big brawls because there's a lot of troops that you can buff, and fights last longer. And also, if you're not getting attacked, that Trajan can help your other marches just get so much damage cranked out. It's really nuts. But in a short fight like this, okay, which ended in less than 2 minutes time, it's very reasonable to say, hey, you know what we don't need is Trajan. So if we look at what marches Leopard had here, and we can see that all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 marches participated in this little tussle versus the Skippy Tariq Ibn Ziyad. You can see that Leopard was using Nevsky with William. He's using Joan with Mehmed. This is a different setup than what we would normally consider to be the meta setup. We talked about this in my last video, about how XY is so squishy that in a 7v7 it's a liability. So he chooses not to bring it and brings the Mehmet instead to have a more sustainable Joan of Arc march. I actually still think that on both sides, I would argue that the Minamoto could be better than Mehmet in this instance for a 7v7. But they've both opted for the Mehmet, and it obviously works, I think, well for both of them here. He's also using Skippy Prime with Tariq Ibn Ziyad. He's got Guan with Sargon. Both of them do. He's got Henry with Zhuge Liang, and they're both, I think, using Henry as the primary. We'll double check. Baba might have used Zhuge Liang primary. Then Boudica with Artemisia for Leopard. And Nebu with Isong. Now, Baba brought some slightly different picks here. For the archers, Baba used Boudica with Tommy. And there's a very clear reason why Baba brings Tommy. That is for the 4th skill, applying a skill damage taken debuff. So that is a very intentional swap. Also, we can see here by looking at these reports, I'll look at one of the reports that Leopard sent me here. I imagine this will be, let me easily show all Baba's marches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, there it is. So what does Baba have that's slightly different? If anything, and there's not much. We know there's the Tommy, and also there's the Zhuge Liang as the primary. There it is. Now, what's the difference between Zhuge Liang primary and secondary? Well, Henry has the support tree. The support tree is very good at receiving skill damage and mitigating it. So, the advantage of using a Henry primary, I think, is actually really good. But the advantage of using Zhuge Liang primary is that he is going to apply his debuff to the enemy sooner, obviously, by going first, right? By having him as the active, the primary commander here. So if we get a look at the active skill, it's going to reduce the damage dealt by 15% for the next 3 seconds. So this is a big deal in a little brawl like this, because if you can get your Zhuge Liang to fire off first, then you've reduced 5 of their targets, and the damage they'll deal with skill damage by 15%. That's actually like really, really big, okay? Baba also has the Nebu song, and here's that Boudica Tommy, okay? And if we look at the troop buffs, you can see it's this 4th skill, stacking up poison effects that gets kind of interesting. I generally think that you can only get to between like 7 and at most like 9 of these stacks on here, because Boudica generates so much rage. But it could be that Boudica is just kind of the way to run in this situation with the Tommy. And also, there is a debuff here that's very important. All attacks have a 10% chance to decrease the target's defense by 30%. Man, that's a really good debuff. So it could be that these two players have, in fact, landed on the meta. I will point out that there are some interesting swaps you could make in this situation. For example, Honda Tadakatsu does mitigate damage taken pretty moderately. At least the first 57 normal attacks are mitigated quite significantly. So you could use a commander like that, and he also benefits in fights where you run your march into the ground. He boosts skill damage. But regardless, I think that they obviously chose some really great marches here. So let's go back and get a finer look at these reports. And the thing that I'm most interested in doing here is actually comparing the stats. Like, march for march, who has more stats? And this is where things get really interesting, because they used almost identical marches throughout, right? So here, if we compare the Skippy, Tariq Ibn Ziyad combos and we look at the troop buffs, Baba has opted for slightly more attack, like ever so slightly less defense. Honestly, we could call this the same. But amazingly, Leopard has managed to pull down 15% more health almost, which is kind of nuts. Like, Leopard's got a lot of health prioritized on his infantry here. And Leopard does have his iconic gear on this particular march, whereas Baba does not. Baba has 1% more all damage, but otherwise their stats the same, which is very interesting. If we look at the next report here, we can compare the next troop type and kind of compare their stats. Boom, we'll drop in on the Guan Sargon. I think this is a powerful combo. It is particularly good if you want to be swarming a garrison with Guan. And here we can compare them. By the way, the overall total for this battle report, right, is 26,000 to 110,000, which is kind of nuts. So This March is obviously getting some crazy value. We scroll back down here, and we can do this comparison. How do their marches compare? Baba has almost 12% more attack. So Baba's maybe using the infantry set here. He's also got 10, well, I guess we'll call it 8% more defense. But this is really incredible. But Leopard has more health. Leopard has a lot more health. He's got, oh, wow. I mean, you're looking at 12% more health, 12 and a half. It's a lot of health, man. So Leopard has managed to get a lot of health on here. I assume they're both using runes, perhaps. And it's entirely possible that Baba has a 7/7 rune for attack and defense, whereas Leopard's got a 10% health rune. Maybe that's a part of what's going on here. If we look over here at the base stats, this is the gear that Baba put his iconics onto, okay, for his infantry. And he's got 1% more all damage and 1.5% more skill damage. So that's like an inscription. Probably both of those could be inscriptions. Okay. Wow. Really crazy. Really crazy. Let's go look at the next one here. Next report. How do they compare? Okay, here we are with the cavalry. We've got Nevsky William versus Nevsky William battle data. 54,600 to 85,500. So, positive report here by, like 30K, which is nice, but I mean, positive, negative in this situation doesn't matter. It's kind of who's left standing at the end. We look at the troop buffs, and we got to be looking at the cavalry stats now. We've got about 11% more attack for Baba almost. And then we're looking at, like, wow, a lot more defense as well. That's kind of wild. Not quite 10% more defense, like 8% more defense here. And then health-wise, yet again, Leopard's just got the health advantage here. We're looking at like a 9% health advantage. I mean, I'm pretty sure that this comes down to runes at this point, because I would assume their armaments are similar, like very similar. Iconics here are about even. Slightly more all damage for Leopard and more skill damage, but more counterattack damage for Baba. So this probably has to do with the inscriptions that were used here. Up next, we're looking at the fourth report shared. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we've got the Joan with Mehmed. This is so interesting, by the way. 36,000 to 76,000 is a fine trade here. And we look at the Joan Mehmed versus Joan Mehmed. We look at the buffs here. We scroll down to cavalry stats. 13% more attack for Baba. And we're looking at almost 14% more defense. Maybe we'll call it 13% more defense. But in terms of health, good God, that is insane. How is it that Leopard has managed to pull down an astronomical 33% more health on his cavalry? That is unreal. That's actually really crazy. I mean, health on calves is really good, and there are some great ways to get it with equipment, but that is just a really big health number. It's actually shocking. Iconics are different, but even-ish here, I think. Actually, it looks like Baba's just got one accessory, whereas Leopard's got a couple different pieces here, not an accessory. And then Baba's got slightly more all damage, but Leopard has more counterattack. Wow. Really interesting. Okay. Up next then, we go to the fifth report. At this point, we should be looking at all archers. So we should go right over here. Okay. This Nebu with Esong, I mean, it was the first thing that got hit, but it is surprising that it's still one positive. No, sorry. Still one positive. This guy can't read a report. No. -2 for 1. Okay, that makes way more sense. Chisgule just woke up, everybody, obviously. Time to look at the battle trends here and compare the two. Nebu with Esong. God, if it's still one positive, that would have just been completely absurd. Nebu Esong versus Nebu Esong. Troop buffs. Okay. We got to scroll all the way down to the archer stats. 7% attack difference over here. Okay. And that's in favor of Leopard having more attack. Then we look at the defense, and you're looking at about 5-6% actually on the defense in favor of Leopard. Leopard's just got more stats here and about 5% more health. So he's got about 5% more stats of everything in this particular instance. He's also got an iconic accessory, which is interesting. Baba has more all damage, but he has slightly less normal attack damage and like I mean, 0.5% less skill damage. Very interesting. Okay, so Leopard's got the slightly better archer gear equipped to his Nebu with Esong. Now we need to look at the 6th report. How does that look? We're almost at the bottom here. Now we've got the Budokatami. Okay, this is interesting. We can compare these, but Budokatami does go negative. So positive trade for Leopard against this particular march. And we have to compare the stats of a Budokatami to a Boudica Artemisia, which, like, obviously these are going to be very different, okay? But we'll do it anyways just for the sake of looking at the stats, you know, on both their marches here. We scroll on down. Archer stats. Baba has 50% more attack. Wow. 50% more attack is crazy. Leopard has what in exchange? Oh my God. Okay, so he has 9% more defense, but he's got 40% more health. Holy cow. What? How? So how? I say how, but like I think I know how, and we can talk about that now. I think what he's doing is he's using the leadership set legs and boots, whereas Baba is probably using the archer set in its entirety, and maybe is using like KVK weapon and helmet, but the legs and the boots anyways have got to be archer set for Baba. That's crazy. Iconics are in favor in this case of Leopard, for sure. He's got almost entirely crits and iconics and everything. It's probably just an accessory, in fact, that isn't crit, which, like, yeah, I mean, accessories are basically impossible. 1% more all damage for Baba, 0.5% more normal attack damage, 10% more counterattack. Right, that's from Tommy. And a part of what is making the difference on these, again, is also, of course, Tommy gives a bunch of attack on her buffs over here. So if we look at these stats, I think it's, doesn't she give attack? 30% attack. Yeah. Tommy's giving the attack. Artemisia's giving 20% defense and health. But you can still see, like, it just really changes the way the march performs. Okay. From here, final report. We can go look at battle data. 65,000 to 60,000 on the Zhuge Liang with Henry. We can compare the two, and it's going to be interesting to see how the stats stack up, because we know that Leopard used the Henry as the primary, and, you know, even just using different talent trees can, you know, pretty significantly impact the stats. But it looks like the Zhuge Liang Henry never hit Leopard's. Oh, just kidding. It's right here. I just scrolled too far. I scrolled right past it. Archer stats. Okay. What's the diff? We're looking at about 15% more attack for Baba. We're looking at about 9% more defense for Baba. And we're looking at about 15% more health for Leopard. Wow. I mean, you can see the prioritization of health here on these marches. And then, boom, the iconics. It looks like Baba's got an overwhelming majority of his crit iconic gear over here. Only thing not crit is an accessory. And then Leopard does not have the majority of his iconics here. In fact, it looks like he's got 2 iconic accessories. We're looking at a solid 3% more all damage for Baba, which is pretty surprising. He does have 1% less normal attack damage. So Leopard has more normal attack damage, and Baba has about 3% more skill damage. It's pretty wild. So these are just some, like, really, really crazy reports here. And we can look at Leopard's data as well to just see, hey, like, how did his marches trade, which I think is kind of interesting. And we can see kind of like what does the battle data look like. So for his Guan march, he goes about even, 70,000 to 72,000. I guess this is actually a slight positive trade for Leopard here. We'll look at the second report, and this has 82,000 to 71,000 for the Joan Mehmed. Okay. And I mean, like, obviously, because Baba's got the last marches standing, we're going to expect that his reports are more positive. Third report over here, Boudica Artemisia. Went about even, 63 to 63. Okay. We look at the fourth report in. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4 for Leopard. And 71,000 to 65,000 for the Nebu with Esong. So this went slightly negative. Then we look again at the Leopard report. We're looking at the 5th report now. Skippy, Tariq ibn Ziyad went negative, 67,000 to 44,000. Okay, then we look at the 6th report here. Big thank you again to Leopard and Baba for sending this data. Really appreciate it. 77,000 to 35,000 for the Henry Zhuge Liang. Wild. And then last but not least, we've got the Nevsky with William. And this is what got targeted first, 83,000 to 26,000. It's very interesting that Baba went for the Nevsky William first, because the William buff is big and he just took it off the table. Like, he just straight up removed it. And the thing that I would have expected is that the Nevsky would be really tanky because he gains health when he gets targeted. But with 7 marches, I guess everything just pops so fast. It was actually shocking to watch Leopard with the Nevsky William end up dropping about as fast as the Nebu with Esong for Baba, because I generally think the Nebu Esong is a really squishy march. But all things considered, like, obviously getting the William buffs off the table is really, really good. And so it's very interesting that either Baba intentionally went for this or by luck of the draw ended up targeting it. I say that because it's a little bit tricky to target what you want, but that's actually not true. So how do you handle this in this situation to target what you want? If all the enemy marches are stacked up on top of each other like they were at the start of this fight, you basically just keep tapping in the same place until it rotates through to the march you want. So I would assume this is actually very intentional, how he targeted here. Really interesting. Does this mean that attack and defense are better than health? I mean, that's probably not the takeaway I would pull from this battle. But it is really interesting that Baba did seem to have attack and defense as a priority over health. And he got the win. So this is the second duel. Would I want to watch more of these duels? Obviously. I would love to watch a best 3 out of 5, because I do think that the combination of randomness and targeting would lead to a different result, like almost every time you run it back. So it would be really interesting to see them do more of this, although every time they do it, it's a full hospital. So, you know, costs a few resources, a few speed ups to actually go through that. It's probably, I mean, close to a completely full hospital. So if you enjoyed this video, do me a huge favor, throw a like on here, consider subscribing. If you want to see the original duel, which over 20,000 people have watched in under 24 hours, which is awesome, card will be in the end screen for that original duel between Baba and Leopard. And if you want to see an overview of Baba's account, or the last time I did a feature on Baba, I'm sure I did that at some point, right? I don't know. I'll have a card in the end screen. It might just be a Baba interview, which was a little bit old. Maybe we can do a newer one. Until next time, my friends, you have fun smashing the kingdom.